back to the house. She just didn't worry about it. So she was administering the girls that were sitting there trying to administer to you. So anyway, they dropped me off in Manila, and I cabled her.
What about the Vietnamese? Where did they go?
They went on to Guam. And what is interesting about that, I look on Harriman and McNamara as very bad, wrong-headed guys, war managers. But there was another guy named Bill Sullivan. He went with Harriman to Geneva to strike that terrible Geneva Accord in '62. But he was also our ambassador in Laos, and he just kept the lid on. We couldn't do anything. He was he'd hold the Air Force accountable for anything. He was the ambassador in the Philippines. Check your records. William Sullivan, ambassador in Laos. Next assignment, ambassador in the Philippines. When all these people would come out, he didn't want to take him. He kept sending him back home. I'm not going to take him. So he did not facilitate. So they went on to Guam.
Thank you.
Yes.
You talked about those two little children.
Yes.
Did you ever see them again?
No. But you know, that was one of the things that haunted me that day is we're just sitting in Saigon is being evacuated. And that woman, everybody hated me there at the end. That woman, she even disliked me. I mean, clearly, she saw me as somebody that was taking the children away. And I had promised I'd be done. I wasn't going to betray her trust in me. I was going to come by and get those kids. When in fact I did. It was just beyond my control. But I think this, they didn't slaughter the mixed race kids. I think those kids and her probably got out. Because the Saigon government was actually pretty good about that, letting them out. So it would have been, we would probably taken them into the fold, and at some point she would have shown up, and their place was with her. Give me some more questions. Give me some hard. How many agree that we should have gone to Vietnam?
We should have gone.
We should have gone. Yeah. Show of hands. I'd like to qualify that. I think we should have stopped the communist aggression. I do not approve of the battle plan that we used. I don't approve of the Geneva Accords. And feeling like we were obligated, but it was something of our own device, of our own design. But I'll tell you, I never knew men as stout-hearted. I've never had friends as close as I had from those I served with in Vietnam. And I think that, I love that job of the CIA working with the blown-up country. There were only about a dozen of us. For all the thousands involved in that Asian conflict, there were about a dozen of us. Yeah, lost my train of thought. Yes, sir.
Sir, in your opinion, why haven't we learned from Vietnam the lessons of trying to fight a war when you really didn't know who the enemy was in today's situation?
I don't know. I don't know if it's, if I were to say, I don't have any first-hand experience. What I've said today in my comments, it comes from being there on the scene. This I know authority. I do know that the military-industrial complex drives things in Washington. Once they get those Air Force programs going, like with the CIA and the Air Force was working on the drones together. The drones and the Air Force backed out. You know why? Because we were trying to equip their planes with robots. There are things that, I remember one time Nixon was challenged by some anti-war guy about this and that about it. And Nixon said, I agree with everything you said. And he said, why don't you stop the war? He said, I can't. There's some things you put in motion in Washington. And it's sort of this big monster up there. It's hard to find the handles. How do you make it turn it left or turn it right? I think something we haven't taken pause as a government, as a people, as a culture, is that when you and I were kids, there were 3 billion people on the face of this good earth. 3 billion. When I went to Vietnam in '65, 3 billion people on the face of it. How many do we have now? 7. More than 7. The world population has more than doubled in our lifetime. Now that says absolutely, Willie will tell you about South Africa, what that means for this mass of humanity out there who can't feed themselves. That has brought on new things that are predictable because numbers rule. You give me any situation and majority rule, numbers rule. So you're going to have a lot of uneducated people in the next 10 or 15 years. How are you going to deal with them? I think we should do some long-term planning. And you know, Obama and his wall, you know where one of the biggest concentrations of the population explosion is coming from in the next 15 years? Central America. So Obama, I mean, it sort of makes some sense there. But see our good friend over there, Alma, she'll hold me to task when we get finished here. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. I enjoyed reading your book. And
You read my book?
yes,
Was it good?
yes, worth 25 bucks. I've got two questions.
Yes, sir.
In your book, you mentioned two names I'm familiar with me, Trost and Sergeant Brett. Those are two good Minnesota names, and I'm wondering if you remember those gentlemen.
Yeah, Trost
Where they're from, what
replaced
happened
me.
to them?
I don't know, and he sort of dropped out. He didn't reach out. We go to Facebook. We've had several efforts to reach people. But Trost, he replaced me as platoon leader. And who was the other guy, Bratcher?
Brett Schneider. Sergeant Brett Schneider.
Snyder. Was he in my platoon?
In your book. First tour of duty.
I don't know. I feel blessed in life. I feel blessed because my platoon sergeant was Cecil Bratcher, who died a few years ago. Because it's tough sometimes for a second lieutenant to command the platoon, because the platoon sergeant, if he's an alpha animal type, he's going to run it because he's got his network of sergeants out there. And sometimes the second lieutenant, the little gold bar guy, becomes the mascot. But Bratcher and I don't know, we got along from the first day, and we had a good division of labor. And at night, so it would be Cecil, Bratcher, it would be Spencer and Bratcher and myself. And we would be the little command group of platoon would be out, unless we were a single platoon, and then they'd be sort of around us in close. But the three of us bonded. When you go to sleep at night, and you trust your life to somebody sleeping right beside of you, you're giving your life up. You're trusting your life to them. And then you wake up in the morning and you're okay. It builds up this almost, this bond. It's hard to describe it. But, you've been to hell with this guy, and he looked at you, he was awake.
The second question I have, back in Minnesota, one of my friends, a Vietnam era, sir, and he also read your book, and he asked me to ask you if you know anything about Lima, or Lima, Site 85 in Laos. He wanted you to comment on that.
Site 85 was before my time. It happened before 71. But it was a high peak. Our distances from where we were was 500 miles from downtown Hanoi, where Long Chin was, where I spent 2 years. I was 500 miles. Now, somewhere closer to us, let's say 40, 50 miles away, was this tall peak. And we had Air Force apparatus there. They would guide in the planes. But it was one of those things where it had one sheer side of the cliff, and the other side we had protected with loam. But it gave valuable service. And there again, Bill we were saying there are too many bad guys out there right around our base. We were bringing stuff in by Air America, but there were just too many enemies. I mean, it was filthy with enemies. So the campfires were all around this place, and loss of life was imminent. And so Sullivan finally went around, but he's going to give it one more day. And that allowed the North Vietnamese to scale the sheer side and overrun it. They captured most of the equipment. But there's a famous picture of an Air America helicopter shooting down a North Korean, North Vietnamese biplane bomber. That happened in Site 85. But a great story, I was in conversation with an outfit called Bright Road production about doing something about the Battle of this country. And that was just, it's a great story. But how we ripped the shirts of that 27,000 hardcore Vietnamese, and we did it with Asian soldiers and B-52 and F-4s. But it was no recognition at all because of the CIA. But you know, one of my talks that I gave on this transatlantic was about the CIA and some of the people I knew. One of the guys that made a big imprint on me early on in my career was Howard Payton. And he said, in the clandestine service, we don't do it. You know, in the field, you have two jobs. You've got to maintain your cover and then do your CIA work. You get one paycheck. So you do this work not for fame or fortune, but you do it because you believe in the mission. And outside of all the dare and do about the CIA and the clandestine corps that you see in the movies, our job is really pretty simple. Our job is to maintain a watchful presence overseas and to give back to the president and the intelligence community the real story about what's going on. And we contact world national leaders, we pay them under the table, we pay them over the table, we pat them on the back, but we get the inside word of what's going on around the world. So maintaining a watchful presence is what we do. So listen, the book's up here, $25. We're going to have $25 on the Yes, sir.
After the United States totally decided that they were done in Vietnam, did you ever have any hope that the Arvins could hold South Vietnam?
No, you know, the reason General Hong waited a couple of days before he committed suicide because he had contacted some units and some battalions that he thought would help, and he was going to use Cambodian enclaves or sanctuaries, and he was going to try and hold out, but he was found out, and when he realized he was compromised, and he said he couldn't leave. So your question is, could the Arvin have held out?
No way. No way.
Was that your question? Could the
Yeah,
Arvin
that
have?
was my question, yes. Could have they held out longer?
I was looking at the back row, but you're right here.
Okay, that was my question, really. Could have they ever held out?
No, they were dying every day, every week. They were weaker than I was there. They couldn't have held out. That's why. But you know, another interesting thing. So after this really meaningful, this stressful 2 weeks before the evacuation, I'm on the top deck looking at all this chaos going on in the Longtown Harbor. And off to the left, there are commercial ships that are lining up. They're going to go up the Saigon River with their cargo. So life goes on with the Vietnamese. That same day, the American embassy was evacuated. Our sense here in Las Vegas is that's consumed the country. It only happened in a small part of the town. Saigon went on. People planted their crops. Life goes on. You can just sort of disagree with things that turned out. Sometimes you're happy. I'm a big Trump supporter, but you can't talk politics. Any other questions?
Great talk, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.